Today is March 17th, 2024. My name is Jo Reingold, and I'm here interviewing Charles Pulman. Charles, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for asking me.
Tell us about your last time in Israel, what you experienced, and what made you want to participate in that particular trip.
Thank you. The last time Janine and I were in Israel was in the summer of 2022. We were there for 3 weeks. And of course that was not our first trip. We've been to Israel many times. My first time to Israel was in the summer of '71 when I lived on the kibbutz. After October 7, Janine and I knew that we had to return to Israel. And we're looking for opportunities to go. We had been told, and in particular, we wanted to go to the Gaza envelope. We have spent time on the Gaza envelope in the past. We know people. We had been to the kibbutzim. We had stayed at a kibbutz hostel. And then one day we got an email from the Federation that said they were putting together a solidarity mission and it would be a limited number of people. Janine and I knew instantly that we were going to go. And within an hour of the email, we signed up. And it was an incredible and meaningful visit or mission that the Federation put together. And we accomplished what we wanted to. It was difficult. I have seen the IDF film that contains the GoPro footage from the Hamas terrorists on October 7th. But we felt that we needed to actually be there and see. So with the Federation mission, which lasted from a Monday through a Thursday at the end of March, we spent time on the Gaza envelope. We went to Kfar Aza. We went to the music festival site. We went to an area on the Gaza envelope where they have collected the cars and the vehicles that were attacked. We saw the carnage that, because I've seen the IDF video, it unfortunately brought life to what we were now seeing on the Gaza envelope and the destruction. It was particularly poignant that when we were in Kfar Aza and we were in the neighborhood backing up to on the perimeter, backing up to the fence separating Israel from Gaza, that when you looked at the homes that had been attacked, they incurred structural damage, but the inside of the homes were black and all shot up. And without seeing, even if you had not seen the IDF film, you knew what occurred because of all of the coverage and the reports that have come out. And it was chilling. It was, you could hear the screams and the silence. Janine and I have visited with survivors of Kfar Aza of October 7th. We've heard their stories, and it was horrific. And then as we walked around the kibbutz and we walked close to the gate that separates Kfar Aza from Gaza, although the gate has been replaced, you knew what had happened and how the gate had been destroyed that allowed thousands of terrorists at that point and at other points along the border to reach inside of Israel and commit the atrocities that were committed, and that the Israelis, there's not an Israeli who doesn't know someone who was either killed, injured, or is continuing to be held by Hamas in Gaza and the Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, where the families gather holding vigil, to the posters throughout this country, through the large teddy bears that are fastened to bus stop benches with with red on them, signifying the blood. You can feel the anguish and the despair that is throughout the country for the Israelis, for the captives, as I call them, who Hamas is manipulating and won't even release the names of who they are. And now we find ourselves with Israel having really a dilemma. What is their priority? Not that they're necessarily mutually exclusive, but the pain and the anguish between getting the captives back, which I will just add, I find it somewhat curious or interesting that the slogan is "Bring them home." In my view, the slogan should be "Let my people go," because Israel cannot bring them home unless Israel concedes all of the outrageous demands of Hamas and fails to wipe out Hamas. For failure to wipe out the Hamas will just be another October 7, which the leaders of Hamas have said they intend to repeat until there is no Israel.
Is it possible for you to pinpoint something that was the most meaningful for you, or several things that were the most meaningful while you were there?
You know, it's an interesting question because so much has happened. I sort of view that what's happened now is we're looking at a nation and its people that is at war for existence. But when I say nation and its people, it has two meanings. It means Israel and the Israeli Jews, and it means the nation of the Jewish people and the Jewish people, which includes you and me. Because I believe that the Jews in Israel and the Jews here in America and in the diaspora are facing the same war, but we're fighting different battles. But we're both fighting for our continued existence as we have come to appreciate it. And we're finding an increase in the anti-Semitism and in a type of anti-Semitism that not only, in my view, and as others have said, has not been seen since the 30s, but you have these barbarians and Hamas who film themselves massacring people of all ages and gender, and and then people in parts of the world celebrating it. So we have a lot to do. Now, the answer to your question, I don't really have one particular event, whether it was the shopkeeper on Ben Yehuda that said thank you for coming, because we went there on Saturday night and nobody was there, whether it was all the Israelis we met that all said thank you for coming, obviously being in the Gaza envelope, going to the hostage square, and everything we saw. But the one thing that did occur to Janine and I separately, and we talked about it, when we came back, we both recognized an eerie quiet that exists in Israel today. Not a Shabbat quiet, but not a bustling society as it was before October 7th. There's a anxiety that you can feel of what's next, whether it's on the north with Hezbollah, whether it's from Judea and Samaria or the West Bank or the Houthis. Interestingly, if I can digress for a moment, in 2014, Janine and I we spent some time in the Gaza envelope. We went, with military clearance, we went into a Hamas tunnel that had been extended into Israel, and we met with military and security people, And in 2014, we were told that Israel was preparing for a three-front war. 10 years later, the war occurred, and we are here living it. It's incredible. In fact, Janine and I the other night found pictures from 2014 of the Gaza envelope, and it's an interesting comparison to look at Kfar Aza in 2014 and Kfar Aza now. So it's a composite, frankly, of not one particular thing stands out from the trip, as it is a composite of everything we did that helped us to better appreciate what occurred on October 7th, but also at the same time to better understand what our role is going forward. And if I may, I have a short title for what we can do. As you know, the slogan that is advertised by the Holocaust museums is "Be an upstander." After October 7th, each of us, each Jew, needs to become an upstander for ourselves. We need to step out of our comfort zone. We need to stand up for ourselves and not wait for other organizations that we have been upstanders for to come to us because they may not be there. And we need to stay united. And we need to understand that there are forces that are working against us, that the demonstrators in the streets that are celebrating Hamas, we need to be aware of it and confront it.
I want to ask you, I know you and Janine stayed longer than the mission, right? So tell us about what you did afterwards. What happened?
So the second week that we were there, we volunteered at an IDF base through an Israeli NGO named Sarel. In fact, Janine is a volunteer for Sarel. She interviews people who are from the United States who want to volunteer on an IDF base. And Sarel is sort of the clearinghouse and facilitates people from throughout the world who want to volunteer on an IDF base. So we were there for 5 days at a military base outside Tel Aviv. We're doing civilian work. We're not learning military. We're
Shooting
not learning
a gun.
to be combat soldiers.
Right, right.
We're doing what IDF soldiers would be doing if there was not a war. We, for example, would open boxes. We were working in the medical warehouse, so we would open a box, we would take out the medical supplies, we'd sort through them, we'd put them in other boxes. It was sort of menial work. One of the assignments we had was rolling up bedrolls that had been cleaned, and which I actually found to be somewhat fun because the challenge in rolling up an open bedroll is the zipper. And I'm not an expert in getting a zipper to work, but it turned out that one of the participants with us as a volunteer was from England, and he manufactured zippers. And so whenever I ran across a zipper I couldn't get to work, I would say, "Jeff, can you get this to work?" And almost every time he did.
Let me ask you something. Did you and Janine plan this ahead of time, or did it occur to you that you wanted to stay extra once you decided to sign up for the mission?
Once we knew that we were coming with the Federation, then we contacted Sorel and said, we want to be there the second week.
Okay.
Sorel is receiving volunteers. In our group, there were like 25 of us at the base together. There were people from England, from France, from Canada, and from the United States. I've actually, when we were in Israel in July, in the summer of 2022, I actually spoke at an IDF base to younger volunteers Jewish and non-Jewish, which in our group there were non-Jews that were volunteering too. And Sorrel is receiving a surge of applications to the point where there's more people wanting to volunteer than they can house. They gave us Army uniforms. We had no rank, just the fatigues. We slept in barracks. The barracks were separated, the men from the women. Some people slept in tents. We slept in the barracks. They provide the food and we provide the work. And it works out great. And I found that the interesting part was meeting Jews and Zionists from other parts of the world, having an opportunity to talk. The last night we were together, I was asked to lead a discussion among our group, which was very interesting. You know, people had differences of opinion. Some were strongly held, some were asking questions. But what I am finding is everyone wants to talk. They want to know more. And we are receiving requests here in Dallas to come and talk, as others from our mission are also talking.
What would you say to someone who is on the fence about going to visit Israel this year? What encouragement would you give them?
Well, it is interesting that you asked that, because when people began to know or find out that Janine and I were going to Israel now, almost everyone to a person said, "Is it safe?" And without being trivial, my answer was, based on my experience in being in Israel, and based upon my knowledge of what the conditions are in people that I've talked to in Israel, I will feel safer in Israel than I do in this country, because unfortunately in this country, you don't know what facility you may enter, whether a movie, a restaurant, a school, a church, a synagogue, that someone may be there with a pistol or a rifle. And it's occurring here. And in fact, that was the truth. When we were in Israel, we had guards on our bus. They had nothing to do. I mean, we didn't have any incident. It was nothing out of the normal that existed in Israel 2 years ago, 20 years ago, especially now, because everyone is on high alert. And yes, there are single terrorist attacks occurring, not so much in Israel, but yes, but also in Judea and Samaria. But unfortunately, and I'm not saying that it's terrible, but it's been occurring for 25, 30 years or longer. So the answer to your question is, safety is not an issue. You're safe. Now, there are parts of Israel today that you won't go to. You can't go to. You can't go to the north. You can't go to the Lebanese border. People are moving back to the Gaza envelope, the residents, because basically Hamas has been eliminated as a threat to the Gaza envelope, but Hamas, as of today, hasn't been totally eliminated, and there's the issue with Rafah and the south. But it's entirely safe. And I encourage people to go, because the Israelis need us. As I said, everyone said thank you for coming. And we need it. As hard as it is to internalize what happened on October 7th, we need to understand what happened, and we need to say, I've been there. Then you go to someone and say, I was at Kfar Aza. I saw the destruction. That doesn't mean that you condone the death of anyone else or what may be happening in Gaza. But Israel is fighting for its existence. And the Israelis are too, the people. And unfortunately, it's a war, and Hamas's charter calls for the destruction of Israel, and we need to recognize it and stand up for who we are.
Well, thank you, Charles. I appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you
and
for
we're very
asking.
proud of the mission that went to Israel.
Yes,
very proud of it in Dallas.
They did a great job.
Yes. Thank you so much.